What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be going over a couple different things once it loads up. We're going to be looking at distance formula. We're going to be looking at midpoint and endpoint. For this particular review, if you're doing this in class, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate. All of these questions in this right side here. That should leave us with a decent number of distance formula questions. And we're really not looking to do, too many of these because it is a weird formula, but it is literally just a formula where you plug things in. So I think that doing a couple questions is enough. Okay, looking at number one, if we're going to find the distance between 2 points, we need to figure out what those points are. And so I'm looking at this point and this point. I can just call them A and B, and I need to figure out what are those points. And I'm just going to use my coordinate locating, use the coordinate plane, go in the X direction, go in the Y direction. I'm going to write them out like this, A and B. I called A this point up here. It really doesn't matter which one's which. Distance A to B is the same as B to A, of course. The A coordinate is in the negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 X position, and the positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Y position. The B coordinate is in the positive 1 X position and the X position, and the negative 2 Y position. Now I'm going to use the distance formula. The distance formula, just to write it down for you, is the square root of parentheses squared that are added together with a minus inside the parentheses. We're going to do x minus x and y minus y. The only thing that you have to keep out, make sure you're getting right, is that if you decide that A is going to go first, then A x value needs to be first, and A y value needs to be first. You can't put the A x value first and then the A y value second. That would be a mistake. So just make sure that you organize yourself accordingly. And once you do that, the question solves itself. So if I'm going to do number one, distance lowercase d is the square root. I'm going to use all of my room because I'll probably need it. Parentheses squared plus parentheses squared with a minus in the middle. I always like to put this minus because it comes in the formula with a minus. Regardless of the minuses of your numbers, there must be a minus in here, default, plus whatever else you need, or I should say in addition to whatever else we need. So for A, I can put A first. The x value should be negative 5. And then if I'm going to fill the other x value from B, that would be 1. Now when I go to do my y value, I have to choose, because A went first and B went second, I have to choose the same order. A must go first and B must go second. Now you can see in here that these signs, negative 5, negative 1 squared plus 5 minus minus 2, the signs get a little confusing. That's why it's basically the only difficulty with this. Okay, I actually was doing a question earlier today and I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't focused and I got it wrong. So take your time, get these negatives right. Let's click on this. We're going to do the square root of parentheses minus squared. I like to just get everything in there ahead of time. Parentheses minus squared. So here's all the places I need to go. I'm going to put my 4 numbers in. The first number was a negative 5. That's the A value of x. And then the B value of x is 1. Moving over, getting to the y's. The y value for A is a positive 5. And the y value for B is a negative 2. So now I have that my A, which is negative 5, is in the first position. That tells me 9.21, and now we're going to round it up to just 1 decimal. I said round it up, and that was probably not the best way to say it. We're going to round all the questions for 1 decimal place. For this question, we are not rounding up because this 1 after the 2 is not high enough to force the 2 up. So we're going to stay a 9.2. All right. I'm going to say that distance equals 9.2. Really, it's literally just you take 4 numbers, you put them in the right spot, you type it in, you're done. Okay, this formula looks crazy. It's a little tricky, but you just got to type it in and be good. Okay, instead of looking at ones that are, graphically, you can also just be straight up given the points. These, if anything, are easier. The one thing I would kind of suggest is just pick one of these and just label it as first, so that you know which one you're typing in first. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me, that's probably horrible in the video. D equals the square root, use up all my space, parentheses squared plus parentheses squared. It comes with a minus in the parentheses. Please focus on that. Put these numbers first, -2 and 3, and then these numbers, which are second, -7 and -7. Okay, make sure you type it in, make sure you get all the numbers right, and when you already have it typed, you can just get rid of the numbers and get rid of the numbers. Now make sure that you have negative signs in both your parentheses. All right, make sure that you're there. -2, -7, +3, -7. Everything looks pretty good. 11.1, and the number after 1 is an 8. 8 is high enough to round me up. Remember, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we're going up. Okay, so 8's high enough, we're going up. 11.2. So, finish up this question. D equals 11.2. Distance formula. Just get those numbers in there. That's all there is to it. Okay? Now, what we have next is midpoint and endpoint practice. Okay? This is another formula, and it's the same formula for all these questions, but we're going to use it 2 different ways. If you want to find the middle of something, you just average it, right? The left and the right, you just average them out, and it's going to put you in the middle. Okay? The way you average it is you add everything up, and you divide by the number of things you added up. So what we're going to end up with is, if you want the midpoint formula, it is going to be, oh, kind of messed that up. Shouldn't have put a parentheses there yet. You know what? We'll just start it over. Here we go. Comma. There we go. Our midpoint is going to be, take the numbers for x and divide them by 2. X plus x and divide them by 2. Y plus y and divide them by 2. That's it. The midpoint formula is considerably easier than the distance formula. We're going to plug these in, and this is so easy because we literally have an endpoint of 0, 0, so it could not be easier. I'm going to go ahead and plug in. Oh, I cannot believe I'm getting a call right now. Ignore that. We have 0 plus 12, 0 plus 8, and this is going to tell us our endpoint. We can do this in our head, okay? 0 plus 12 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 0 plus 8 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so there's there's our midpoint. 6, comma 4. This may not be my best video I've ever made. Now, finding the endpoint is just as easy, but a little bit more interesting in how we set it up. Okay? The idea here is that we have 3 points. M is the midpoint, A is the endpoint, and B is the endpoint. Now B, we don't know where this is. Okay? We know where A is, we know where M is, but we don't know where B is. Okay? A is over here at -12, 8. M is in the middle at -3, 10. And all of this, we know M is in the middle. We can even use these little hash marks to remind us about being in the middle. Okay? What we are going to do is reverse engineer the midpoint formula. We're going to say that my x value The midpoint is add them up and divide by 2, and that should be equal to the midpoint. So if we're talking about x values, let's get the x values. Add them up, and they should equal the middle. So if I'm going to do that, and I'm going to add these two up, and they should equal the middle. Negative 12 plus this. Now what is b? I don't have any idea what b is. So I'm going to put an x there. And what is the middle? Negative 3. Now I've used all of the x values for this. Right? I've used all the, I haven't used the 8, I haven't used the 10, because I'm talking about x's first. And I've set this up, a plus b, and in the middle is m. Not necessarily, you know, rocket science to try to set this up, but it is a little tricky, okay? My best advice, if you're just copying what I'm writing down without actually thinking, you might be in trouble, okay? On Desmos, I'm just going to type in this whole thing, parentheses, fraction, negative 12 plus x on top of 2, and that's going to be equal to negative 3. What's the midpoint? Or sorry, what's the end point? Where can we find b? We can find b at 6. Now that 6 is my x value. It's only my x value. I still need to go back and do the same process to find my y value. The y value, same thing, right? Add them up, divide by 2, that should be equal to the middle. So I'm going to add up the y values. The y values are 8 and not 10. 10's the middle. 8 and this, I don't know what that is. And that should be equal to the middle, which is 10. I'm going to go back to Desmos. I'm going to type this in. 10, 8, and the middle, sorry, the end, second time in a row, the endpoint is 12. All right. So there we go. 6, 12 is where B is. I'm going to pump through 2 of these really fast, and then I'm done, and the rest is all on you. 3 should be the easiest one. It just says, what is the endpoint? All right. If all it wants is the endpoint, well, then I'm just going to add them up and divide by 2. So for the x's, I'm going to add them up. 11 plus negative 9 and divide by 2. And for the y's, I'm just going to add them up and divide by 2. Negative 2 plus 13 and divide by 2. This question, this worksheet is going to have like fraction answers, particularly just like 0.5. So if we run into those, it's okay. No stress. Going to Desmos, you can even just type it in like this, something that we saw in class. 11 plus negative 9 on top of 2, comma, fraction, negative 2 plus 13 on top of 2. If you label this and you go look for it, there's your answer. You can even just type it in straight like that and it'll tell you 1 comma 5.5. And so you know what? That's good enough. 1 comma 5.5. Okay. 3's looking good. Let's check out our next question, number 4. Question number 4 is one of these endpoint missing questions. And so for these endpoint missing questions, I'm going to set myself up where I need to find the x and the y. In order to do that, I'm going to add them up, divide by 2, and that's going to equal the middle. I'm going to add them up, divide by 2, and that's going to equal the middle. Okay? For my A points, you can even fill them out like this. Negative 2 and 6. Those are my A coordinates, x and y. Now remember, this gap should be the end plus the end equals the middle. I don't know what the end is, so x and y are going to be a mystery. And the last thing is that when I add up these ends and divide by 2, it should equal the middle. Negative 5.5 and 4.5. That's the x and the y coordinate from the middle. It's like left, right, middle. That's how you need to set this up, okay? You go to Desmos and you type these things in and you'll be done. Parentheses, fraction, -2 plus x divided by 2 is equal to -5.5. Where is my x value of the end point? I finally got it right that time. -9. Okay, cool. And where is the y value of my endpoint? I can go back, I can delete the whole thing, I can try to be picky, however you want to do it. 6 plus y divided by 2 is equal to 4.5. Because I've used y's, I've gotten horizontal lines. If you use x's, you'll get vertical lines, but notice, 3, the vertical, the horizontal, doesn't matter, okay? I use y's just to keep myself super figured out here, and 3 is what I'm getting, and so the answer is 3. Now, you should always be able to look at these and just see if that makes sense, right? Should you go from -2 to -5.5 to -9? Yeah, that seems like a nice progression. Should you go from 6 to 4.5, down a little bit, to 3, down a little bit? Yeah, looks good, okay? So there you go. There's 3 answers for this question, 2 answers for the last worksheet. The rest of it is all up to you. Hope you I hope this helps you out. I don't know. This was not my best video I ever made, I'll tell you that.